welcome to this Exponential Race to the Top session hosted by the Exponential Roadmap Initiative that unites innovative, transformative, disruptive companies to drive exponential transformation for halving emissions by 2030. We need maximum ambition, maximum acceleration, maximum cooperation. In a word, maximum action. Those were the words of the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, just a few days ago when the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, released a new and really worrisome report. In this session, we'll discuss why maximum acceleration and maximum action really is all about exponentials. And we'll do that with Johan Rockström, Professor of Earth System Science and Director of the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, who should be showing up right here on the screen. Fantastic, great to have you with us, Professor Rockström. And we'll do so also with Johan Falk, CEO of the Exponential Roadmap Initiative. But let's start with you, Johan Rockström. The month of May, we've heard, was the hottest in history. In fact, we've had now 12 months in a row that were the hottest in history, and that's according to the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service. Now, we also see the impacts of climate change around us. We've seen an extreme heat wave in India. We have seen floods in southern Brazil, devastating, displacing hundreds of thousands. Floods in East Africa, including floods in southern Germany. Professor Rockström, what does climate science tell us where we're headed with the climate action we have so far?
Yes, hello, Andrea. Great to be with you. And let me be very, very clear. There's never been so much scientific reason for concern as today. The latest science, which you just summarized clearly, is that we've just had the first taste of a 1.5 degrees Celsius world. It has cost us so far 300 to 600 billion US dollars in invoices from all the extreme events. You counted up a few of them. They're starting to hurt people across the entire world. But what really worries us, in addition to that, are three key factors. Number one is that the remaining global carbon budget last week was updated, and it's now down to 200 billion tons of carbon dioxide for us to have a chance at all to hold the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit. 200 billion tons of carbon dioxide in a world that emits 40 billion tons each year gives us 5 more years. So we're truly in the decisive decade of humanity's future, which is why we need for an orderly phase out of oil, coal, and gas to cut global emissions by half over the next 5 years, which is a pace exceeding 7% decline, reductions of emissions each year. And we're still continuing to increase emissions by up to 1%. That's number one. Number two, which is even more concerning, is that we have in these reports that you were referring to, the WMO, the Copernicus report, and the latest carbon budget report, the first confirming conclusions that warming is accelerating. We've all deep concern, the climate crisis is actually based on the linear relationship between more greenhouse gases gives more heating. But now we're seeing a tendency over the past 10 years of how the rate of warming is accelerating, actually almost doubling compared to the warming rate from 1970 to 2008. And the third and final concern, I quite recently came back to Brazil and saw this firsthand, we are very close to tipping points. We cannot exclude crossing tipping points in the Greenland ice sheet, all tropical coral reef systems, the West Antarctic ice sheet, but potentially also that we're underestimating the tipping point in the Amazon rainforest because of all these multiple transgressions of boundaries. It's not only about greenhouse gases and temperature, it's also water insecurity, biodiversity loss, deforestation, and land use change, which makes the big tipping point systems more and more brittle. So yes, it's urgent, and exponential pathways is the only thing that counts.
Maybe you can explain that a little bit more. I remember you making that same point over a year ago, actually, at the Stockholm Climate Week, when you said there is no safe landing on a linear journey. And of course, the the science that you just cited, the observations that we have of how climate impacts are here already now, just reinforces that point. But why is exponential transformation needed to get us out of that, to ensure a livable planet?
Well, in a very simple way of explaining it is that our only chance to keep the Earth system, the planet, the climate system in a stable state that can support our world, our lives, future generations, is to stay within planetary boundaries. All of them translates to absolute budgets, and these budgets are now so small with regards to land, fresh water, nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon, that the only orderly pathway we now have is transformative change following exponential pathways. So for a safe landing for humanity to avoid crossing irreversible changes to the Earth system is to go from linear change, and linear change tends to be when we change things incrementally with 0.1, 0.2% per year, to start changing things well beyond 2, 3, 4, even 5% per year. And as soon as you change things more than 2% per year, you're actually doubling or halving something over one generation, and that is non-linear. So you're actually changing things faster than an incremental journeys. Now, this is what has been taking us on the hockey stick patterns of negative change. But what is interesting, and our only, I would say, opportunity today, is to shift these negative hockey sticks over to positive hockey sticks, where we can show that we can have exponential positive journeys. And the question is this possible? And the answer is yes. We see exponential rise of renewable energy systems across the world. We have double-digit annual increase in several percentage points that give us this non-linear positive exponential journey on, for example, electric vehicle adoption in countries like Norway, but also in the trends in China. So it's a question of going from linear to non-linear, which is exponential.
Thank you, Professor Rockström. And that's where I'd like to turn to Johan Falk, CEO of the Exponential Roadmap Initiative. Johan, what makes you convinced that this exponential transformation is possible?
Yeah, this is really as you said, the foundation of our initiative. It's inspired by Moore's law from the computer industry, which has been around for 50 years, which is really about doubling the number of transistors and cutting the cost every year by half. So I would actually claim that exponential is business as usual, because virtually all solutions follow that type of S-curve. They go really slow in the beginning, they reach a certain tipping point, then they start to grow incredibly fast. We've seen that with television, we've seen it with cars, and lately with computers and phones. So what Johan talked about is happening in renewable energy, electrical vehicles, storage, which has actually passed that critical tipping point. So they start to basically outcompete the fossil solutions. Now, we have a number of solutions which hasn't passed the tipping point yet, but is actually growing really incredibly fast, and that's around heat pumps, energy efficiency. Then we will talk more about circular fossil-free steel, all these solutions which are ramping. We need to ensure that we shift these S-curves to the left radically.
So that they kick in
exactly.
earlier.
So they kick in much faster. So that's our mission.
Thank you, Johan. I'd like to pick up there on something that Johan Rockström, we've also heard you say, which is that this new economy that this exponential transformation would get us to, that actually is the economy that gets us better results, and is in fact the only economy that provides prosperity and equity to all of us on the planet. Can you explain?
Yeah, I would argue that that's one of the failures in our communication on sustainability. But let me just hammer home before coming to that Johan Falk's point about exponentials. I mean, the theory around the S curves, which are founded entirely on true empirical evidence, dates back to Roger Everett's theory of diffusion from 1961, where he shows clearly that when you have innovative solutions penetrating some 20-25% of any market in the world, you start seeing this movement from small marginal volumes to exponential increase, and you start seeing things doubling faster than a linear pathway. And this is exactly what we will expect, given that the sustainable solutions across the board actually have increasing evidence of giving more attractive, more competitive, more advanced, healthier outcomes. And that is what has made me and many colleagues with me increasingly reposition the whole sustainability and climate transition agenda from being this conventional story about we have a problem, we need to solve it, and to solve it we have to either back off or somehow sacrifice for our economy or our lifestyles, when in fact we have more and more evidence that the solutions we're talking about gives us better outcomes in terms of health, in terms of jobs, in terms of economy, in terms of competitiveness, but in particular in terms of security. And security is fundamental. When you get more energy dependence, more water security independence, more stable food systems, you have more likely chances of avoiding displacement, migration, even conflicts. These are amplifying effects of a conventional development pathway, which is why Johan Falk's point about exponentials is his point about this being business as usual has actually validity, because the way things go exponential is if you provide a better offer. And if the offer is more silent, more healthy, more technologically advanced, more economically competitive, then you have a chance of things just going suddenly, very rapidly exponential. And that's interesting in the food transition, in circular material flows, in the retail industry, in textile, in everything that has to do with mobility today. Many times we are early on that curve, admittedly, but we know that the outcomes will actually be much more aligned with both social and ecological benefits. So it's in that sense quite an exciting moment, but it's also one of the frustrations that now that we have all this evidence of potentially catastrophic risks, unacceptable risks, and scalable solutions, why are we not stepping on in a much, much faster pace towards following these pathways? And I think that's what we need to think through very carefully. How do we accelerate?
Well, we're calling our sessions here the Exponential Race to the Top for a reason. Johan, just very briefly, as we need to wrap up this session.
Yes.
Why?
The current NDCs will not take us to 1.5 or even 2. And that's a major challenge. So they need to be strengthened. And due to this rapid technology development, we will see that in the presentation, I think later today, there is actually an opportunity to raise the ambition by factor 3. But secondly, I would state it's not possible to cut emissions just by focusing on cutting emissions. We actually have to focus also on the scaling up of the solutions to shift out the fossil economy. And by getting companies, regions, cities and countries to start to cooperate and compete about the new economy, because we basically shift out all the solutions, we can achieve that race to the top, the exponential race to the top.
Thank you both, Johan Falk and Johan Rockström. Thank you for joining this introductory session of the Exponential Race to the Top, broadcasting live here in Bonn from the UN Climate Change Conference in Bonn.